Here's a very quick discussion of what the debate format looks like for the impromptu debates. Feel free to take notes, and here we go. So in a team debate, you have two people that are in favor of the topic as it's worded, like cats make better pets than dogs, or online classes are better than traditional classes, or smoking cigarettes is more harmful than drinking alcohol. So those two people are called the affirmative. They are affirming the topic, meaning that they agree with it. You also then have two people that are saying "nuh-uh" to the topic. Those are the negative. So it doesn't mean that there's a not there. It just means that they disagree with the topic as it's worded and they take the opposite side. So here's what the format looks like with two people on each side. The first person that speaks is called the first affirmative, meaning this is the first person who is going to agree with the topic as it's worded, because obviously that's where we need to start. This person speaks for about 3 minutes. That's the average time. And they have a couple of responsibilities. The first is to thank everybody. So this keeps the debate very civil and not disagreeable. So you thank your partner for helping you. You thank the opposing team for providing a good debate today. You thank the audience for being there. You can thank the sun for shining, or for Mother Nature giving us rain, or anything else you feel like you need to thank. And that's only about 10 to 15 seconds, so it's not very long. Then the affirmative states the topic as it's written on the paper. So this would be, again, my partner and I are going to argue that cats make better pets than dogs. So that's just like the thesis statement. I call it just a topic here because it's put out for debate. They will then provide the preview of their arguments, usually 3 arguments. And this is just like you learned early in the semester. There's a first, a second, and a third. And you state those very quickly. You don't go into any details. You just give me the 3 arguments, or 2 or 4, whichever, before you go into any details. Then, of course, the next part is the details. So this is where you go into some discussion. If you have a website, that's fine, but I don't want you to find a lot of different research. I want you to argue this with logic. And what would you argue if you were sitting at a dinner table at Thanksgiving and you wanted to bring up this topic? The last part then is to review. That's going back and saying, so today I've argued that cats make better pets than dogs. And my first argument was this, second was this, third is this, and then end with some kind of last line. And then you can say, now I'm going to turn it over to, I'm open for cross-examination, which I'll show you a little bit later. Then there is a little bit of questions, and I'll show you where those show up. And then the first negative gets up. They also speak for 3 minutes. The first thing they do, of course, is to do their own thank yous, and they can thank different things. They can repeat the thing. They can, again, this can be a clever moment. It doesn't matter. They're going to respond to first affirmative's argument. So in other words, whatever the first affirmative said in point number 3 there, or point number 4, they're going to go into some details. They'll say, the affirmative argued this, and this is my response. You probably would have 2 or 3 responses to each of those arguments. If you are arguing that dogs make better pets than cats, for example, you could certainly, and the person said that cats are low maintenance. Okay, you could probably have 3 different responses to why that's not a good argument. So this is how you get to the 3 minutes, because it doesn't seem like the first negative has much to say, but in fact they do. They basically need to try to completely level whatever arguments the first affirmative came up with. Then they're going to state the counter topic, which could be a number of things. They could say that cats don't make as good a pets as dogs, in which case we're probably going to hear about the problems with cats. They could also argue that dogs make better pets than cats, which then probably focuses more on the virtues of dogs. They could also argue that dogs and cats are equal, or that it depends on the person. Those are all opposites from saying one pet kind of animal is better than another pet. So they're going to state the counter topic. They won't go into any details. They don't need to provide any previews. They simply stop. Okay, and then you've got the next section, which is now the second negative, and there's a reason why the negatives go back to back. It's because the affirmative has to start and end. So the second negative then also speaks for 3 minutes. They're going to also provide thank yous. Again, keep this real, nice and friendly. And as soon as you thank people, then everything is all real good. They're going to state the counter topic again, and it has to be the same. So first negative says, we're going to argue that dogs make better pets than cats. Then that's the speech that negative has to do, is that dogs make better pets than cats. You can see that this would be weird if the first negative said dogs and cats are equal, and it kind of depends on the person, and then second negative got up and said dogs make better pets than cats. It's like they don't agree with each other. So they have to be in line with how they're formatting their side of the debate. So here's where this looks very much like the first affirmative now. They preview their arguments, usually 3, could be 4 if you want to squeeze one in. You have 3 minutes to do that. You go into the details, so that's again the body of the speech there. And then the last part is negative is going to review, because again they've provided a new speech, so they have to review those main points again. And then this is very important, which is why it's in bold, is they then have to say why we should be voting for negative. So that means after looking at these 3 debates or 3 speeches so far, negative is winning. Okay, and sort of sometimes it backs up and looks at a bigger picture. Sometimes there's an emotional plea in there. That's where you can get kind of fun and dramatic. And then finally, you've got second affirmative, which is the only one that runs 3 to 4 minutes because they have just a little bit more to cover. So this is going to be interesting. So the first thing they do is the thank yous, of course, because we have to thank everybody. And then they're going to respond. They're going to go in reverse order here because we just heard second negative. And so what if the second affirmative wants to do is negate all of that and say this isn't, none of this is a good response or a good build here. So they're going to go into detail on what the second negative brought up, in other words, all the reasons why dogs make better pets than cats. After that, then, they're going to respond to the first negative and talk about the responses that first negative had to their partner's case. Then they're going to rebuild what the first affirmative said in light of what first negative responded. So they have to go back and state why these are good arguments and how whatever response there wasn't good enough. And then they tell us why we should be voting for affirmative. And that's, again, in bold, and that's why it's important. So, and then the last couple of things is between each of these, after each block speaks, I have this at the end because I usually do this on the board this way, there's going to be 2 minutes of questions. So in other words, once first affirmative is done talking, first negative, then first affirmative has to respond to the questions that second negative has, right? And then we've got another 2 minutes of questions. So once second negative is done speaking, we're going to look at these as the red team and the black team, they're colored that way. Once first negative is done speaking, then one of the affirmatives, that's the black team, is going to ask questions. And then once second negative is done speaking, the black team also gets a chance to ask questions. Realizing that first triangle after first affirmative, that's the red team that's asking questions. Obviously, the partner is not going to cross-examine their own partner, right? And then the last little bit squeezed in here is after the second affirmative speaks, that's where red team gets to ask questions again. And these can be questions first off that are clarifying, like, I didn't get what your preview was, could you tell me again? Or I'm not sure what you meant by this argument, can you explain it again? So don't feel like it has to be some kind of clever twisting of an argument to try to get the opponent to admit something. It could simply be you need to clarify it, because if you don't understand it, you can't debate it. So making sure that everything is very clear there, because if it's not clear for you, it's probably not clear for the audience and the judges, whoever is judging the debate. Then if you want to go into, maybe some, clever phrase where you try to get the opponent that they've said something incorrect, you can do that. And the best way to do that is by asking short questions. The longer your question gets, the harder it is for you to get what you want out of the opposing side. But I'm not going to talk about that strategy too much. That's really for an argumentation and debate class, and we might do it in class. If the teams run out of questions, or if they simply don't have any, which sometimes happens, but usually not, then we'll open it up to the audience. They can also ask questions at that point for both sides. And then once we're done, then we're going to debate on who we thought did a better job debating, regardless of how we personally agree. So that's what the format of the debate looks like. And I will talk about one other thing with regard to why this format looks the way it does. But until then, enjoy this video.